Welcome to the 6th Nordic Virtual Meetup. I'm Jens Schøne Petersen, and I'm a co-host of the Danish meetups. And I'll be your virtual host and moderator tonight. We have a few housekeeping rules that please unmute yourself, and when we have the questions later on, then you can unmute yourself, and if you have any questions, then just write it in the chat and we'll get back to you. And this will be about end of year review, and we're so lucky to have David with us tonight to guide us through this review. And luckily for this group, David Allen is a man that needs no introduction. So to have a lot of time for David and the questions, we switch over to Lars for some news from GTD Nordic.
Sure. Thanks, Jens. So we'll start off with a quick bit of news from GTD Nordic. We are still growing, still slowly working our way towards the 20 certified GTD trainers. Back in August, I believe we finally also added Iceland to the GTD map with Petur delivering seminars there. So that's really cool to have him on board as well. So now GTD Nordic is present in all 5 Nordic countries, and I believe this is the first virtual GTD meetup where we have certified GTD trainers across all Nordics present. So I thought that was pretty cool. Besides that, I don't know that there are many news as such to share. There's certainly still a lot of interest in our work, and perhaps even more so now with so many people learning to work from home. And there's a lot of interest in attending seminars where the virtual offerings are, of course, now gaining in interest. So if you want to learn GTD but unable to travel for this, and the virtual offerings are really there, they're really good. You get the same amount of information about GTD as you would in a physical course, but it's, of course, designed for that virtual delivery and also spread across 3 days. So you both learn it at your computer, where you'll likely anyway be using it afterwards. And you also get a chance to work a bit more with the material since you have some time in between those 3 modules. So I can highly recommend that for you or people around you who would benefit from learning GTD. And similarly, of course, interest in the virtual coaching as well has really increased in this time frame. So if you think that coaching would be the right way for you to go, then the virtual coaching program is also a great option. So if you want to hear more about that, then certainly reach out to your local GTD partners. Lastly, we also hope to have some news to share with you early next year about how we're looking to support people attending the seminars and GTD'ers around the Nordics, besides the new Mindmarker reinforced learning program. So if you're not already subscribed to the newsletters for the GTD partners in your country, I'd recommend to be sure to jump on that to stay up to date. That is all the news I had from GTD Nordic.
Thank you, Lars. And let's see the face and hear the voice of all the coaches and trainers in the Nordics. Just say hi to them, and I'll ask them what their favorite part of GTD or what excites them most. So let's go to Finland and Jukka.
Hi.
You can unmute.
I would have to say that my favorite part, now that I've thought about it for the last 30 seconds, would be read review list. This was something I utilized mainly before COVID, when we were still able to travel. Mainly I had time on the train or I had time on the plane, and I read through the read review pile while traveling. But I rediscovered it a few days ago, now in quarantine, and have enjoyed it immensely. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I think we end with us from my list, and Martin from Sweden.
Yes, hello, hey. I think I changed my favorite part during the last week because I went L2, the second course, the projects and priorities. It's a build course that Martin held, and there's a bunch of people on the call that also did it. It was a really good course. And during that course, you go through the natural planning model. And of course, I knew a lot about that before, but I don't think I really had gotten the hang of it before I went this course. So it was really good. And I'm planning to do the planning on my wife's Christmas gift because it's really hard, but don't tell her.
Thank you, Martin. And let's go to Norway / Berlin, Karl Ivar.
Hello, everybody. So nice to see you all and nice to be on this call. I think my favorite part of GTD right now is very simply the clarify and organize step. I'm in the middle of a very intense composition session for my second studio album. I also work as a musician. And the last days I managed to dig out of quite some backlog. And going back to the studio composing today with a very clean backlog, a clean inbox was, you know, I had this experience so many times, but every time it's so cool. It's so, you know, it's so much easier to focus and totally lose myself in any creative process when all that cat food stuff that was buried in my paper piles is been taken out. So that's my favorite. Clarify and organize. It's like kind of meditative thing every day. It's so wonderful. Just pick up one piece of paper and ask, what is this thing? And it's so like, it's zen, or I don't know. David can say more about that. It's I love it.
Thank you. And let's go to Iceland. And Petur.
Yes, hi everyone. It's my first meetup, GTD meetup. Yeah, last week I was with Martin as well on that level 2 course. So that's kind of my latest thoughts and the areas of focus. I love that that brain map with the trigger lists, and a lot came out of that. So I've been emailing it to everyone, and people don't really get it what I'm talking about, or why I'm so excited about that. But so I've had to make a few phone calls to explain it. But it's amazing how our lives are complex and how many things we are focusing on without really knowing it. But now I know, well, half of it at least. So I'm working on it. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have an in-house trainer in Norway, Jonas.
Yes. Hello. I think my favorite part is the projects list, and it's I remember when learning about this from Martin, he was describing it as like a combine harvester, as if you have many projects and you have still your horsepowers, you will move quite slowly, but if you narrow it down, we will deliver faster on the one you choose. And I use that I think every week within Leroy, which is the company I work. So thanks.
Thank you. And let's go to Sweden and Björn.
Hi guys, greetings. My favorite part of GTD right now, it's my newly acquired notebook. It's a paper-based notebook which I put all my thoughts, and throughout the day I make small notes about all the things I'm doing, kind of a journaling thing. So that would be my preferred capturing tool at the moment. So a nice notebook with a nice pen, and then everything is so easy to capture. So that's my favorite part right now. Thanks.
Excellent. And let's stay in Sweden and go to Christina.
Hello, everybody. Very nice to see you all. I guess the favorite part is actually an empty head. But if that's not really part of GTD, but a result of GTD, then my favorite part would be the weekly review.
That's excellent. And that's all our coaches and trainers present today. It was very nice to see all of you. And now we have David Allen that we're going to hear about this end of year review.
Hi guys. You know, in a way, I sort of don't like the end of year review, simply because everybody should be doing this kind of review on some consistent basis anyway. But end of year, why not? If you're not doing it yet, then this is a great time to do something like this. You know, let me give you Catherine and I have, for the last, I think 15 or 20 years, I don't know, we've captured at the end of every year, we take about 30 minutes and just capture what's all the stuff we've done, completed, experienced this year. We take time to actually then acknowledge what we actually did and completed and experienced and whatever over that time, because I think there's a subtle aspect of completion that's not complete until you acknowledge what you did. So for all of you, listen up. There are a lot of things you've finished, you haven't really accepted, acknowledged, validated. I did that. That was so cool. See, everybody goes, New Year's, new things to do. I go, look, New Year's, clean up, finish. Because the new year will then become so much more organically creative for you in a much more grounded way once you handle all those other things. So I don't suggest you create any new completion things to do unless they're relevant. Obviously, you know, don't ignore them. Sure. But the main thing you probably need to do is clean up and finish and acknowledge and whatever. So Catherine and I do a half an hour, 45-minute, hour long, I don't know how long it takes. We just make sure we've captured all the things we did, how many places we went that we didn't go to before, how many things we completed, how many things we resolved, how many things we finalized. It's a great list to create just at the end of the year. So you can, you know, kind of put the finishing touches to the completion of some of these open loops you guys have had. Then we say, okay, and we take, I don't know, the 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or half an hour, whatever it takes. Well, what would we like to have on that list at the end of this year? Wow, to feel this way, or to manage these things, or to have resolved this stuff, or to put this in place, or to whatever. So we don't take a lot of agonizing time to set goals. We just go complete, what's next, and create that map as fast and clean and, well, as long as it takes. But again, you know, Catherine's been doing this work as I have for 35 years. So it doesn't take us long to say, okay, what are the open loops that we still need to identify that are still in our game, on our game, that we want to acknowledge, and get all that externalized in some way. And many times, Catherine and I never even need to review what we just did for that 30 minutes. It just puts into place so many of those things that just kind of automatically format our decisions about options and opportunities and choices that come to us, so we can make more, you know, more comfortable, intuitive decisions about what comes at us. So that's kind of my recommendation for the end of the year. Guys, don't stress about this. Have fun with it. Just say, God, what did we do this last year? And just inventory that and take a look at it. believe me, that will release energy that then could be focused on, okay, so what would next year look like? And then you and any life partners or anybody you're engaged with, business partners or otherwise, in various contexts, but at least for yourself personally, you know, what would I like to have by the end of that year? And then let it go. Say, okay, I'll trust that's internalized. I'll now let that function as a meter or feedback mechanism. Let me know sort of intuitively as I move along which things to choose to do, which things choose not to do. I don't know. Did I get too esoteric, Lars?
No, I think that certainly makes sense for me at least.
So and I don't have much more than that. I'm not a motivational speaker, guys. I'm not inviting you or challenging you to create big goals or whatever. If you have them, you better get them. You better acknowledge them. You better recognize what they are. If you don't, you know, there may be some you might want to set based upon the clarity you might get once you do that exercise. Either and all of those are okay.
And when you think towards the future with Catherine, do you look now? So we had a couple of trainers now mention the areas of focus, for example. Do you use any of those kind of materials as a trigger list for what you want to aim for?
From time to time. Come on, I eat my own dog food, as we said in the U.S. That was the company, I forget who it was, that built dog food, and they said, "Look, our dog food is so good, I'll eat it." So the CEO actually, eat it. That's why it became a phrase in the U.S. If any of you don't know that, eat your own dog food. That's where it came from. So yes, so I do that regularly. And so we have to ask ourselves, how are we doing about this? How are we doing about that? So we just have to say what's got our attention about any of that. And we're willing to look at any of those horizons. Health, finances. Finances, these days, obviously, for most all of us are probably a significant thing to be looking at consistent. And then say, how are we doing? Anything we need to do different that's not on cruise control? And then that's where those projects show up, or those actions that show up. So it's no different than any of you guys have. The GTD methodology is about just what do you need to get your head clear. So are you clear about where you want to be 5 years from now? Are you clear about what you're doing with your relationship with your life partner, or where you're living, or any of that? So this doesn't choose which horizon you need to assess. It just says what's got your attention, and then which horizon do you need to go to ask yourself the appropriate questions to then decide what do you need to do to appropriately engage with that. So sorry, I didn't mean to get too complex about this, but that's really what it is. Anybody who's going to try to make this simpler than what I just said doesn't get the whole game.
Cool. So I think we can open the floor pretty early for questions, and then see where those questions take us. Whether it's some cool things that you do as part of your year-end review, or whether it's some questions for David. Let's open the chat to see what might show up. And feel free to unmute as well if you prefer to ask your question verbally.
By the way, Jarl, Lars, I'll give you a strange little thing. I'm so happy to see all of you guys in the Nordics. This is such a cool environment for what I've done, for what we love, etc. Of course, you guys hate American gurus. Come on. In the Southeast Asia, They love American gurus. So I'm going to try to be as little an American guru as I can be. You know, you go, who's that guy? You know, he's got nice teeth and whatever. You know, it's like whatever. You know, understood. So, but I love the style. We love the culture. We love the thought processes that are embedded in all of your cultures. The positive ones, you know, much resonate to me. So anyway, just a little sidebar I had to insert. Yep, Lars, just don't mind my.
No, I think everyone, yeah, I think everyone appreciated that. One question from Antti. You mentioned that you gather, for example, a number of places you visited. Do you feel that collecting that scoreboard of the year is important part of the yearly review?
I don't know. If it has your attention, sure. I keep a database. I use a piece of software called The Brain. Elegant. Where I could start to capture all the experiences I've had in my life. All the women I've had, you know, engagements with, all the jobs I've had, all the health issues I've had, whatever. I started to collect all that in case I ever write my memoirs. I don't know that I'll ever decide to do that. You know, people said I ought to, but you know, come on, there's I don't know how to engage with all that. But collecting all that data, nothing wrong with that. Why not? You know, at some point you might use that to write your novel, and then use your own experiences to inform the characters, etc. Or for whatever reason. So there's nothing wrong with keeping track of any of that. You know, there's even, you know, very tactical business reasons. If you need to validate to somebody, you want a job improvement or, you know, whatever. Hey, here's what I've accomplished. Here's what I've done. Here's who I've been. Here's how I've managed that. So there's a lot of good reasons to keep track of how you have been and what you have done, but that's very individual and very personal. I would just suggest, you know, pay attention to what's got your attention about that, and then find a piece of software or some sort of tool to be able to manage the data that might be relevant to it.
Yeah. Jonas has added the gratitude journal. I do a weekly gratitude journal where I acknowledge and appreciate everything that I experienced during the week. So I recommend that it's probably similar to how you described your yearly review.
Yeah, gratitude is, we know now, there's a company, oh my gosh, it escapes my brain right now.
Mental exercise, basically.
But there's a company in California that built a whole methodology about how you manage, optimally managing your cognitive process. And it has a lot to do with how do you create a relationship in your brain that is most optimal. And the key element is appreciation. If you move into an appreciation context in your mind, you actually start to access things in your cognitive process that moves them up the chain. So gratitude, yeah, nice thing to feel, nice thing to do, but it also has high, what should I say, cognitive or neurological value. If all of you listening or watching this right now say, what am I thankful right now? You're going to up the scale of your cognitive thinking and perceptions. Me too. Yeah. I'd love to have this finished, but no, there's a consistent process of doing that.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, keep keep the questions coming over there. I was wondering, so because what I would do now that since nobody else is asking questions, I'll ask my own questions from my own list, because I have from my own half-year review. So I've done this for a couple of years now and tried to look at what would make sense for me, and this is time for me now to pick up for the higher horizons. And I'm guessing since you didn't specifically highlight that, then I'm guessing that probably means that you're better than me at picking that up whenever you need to. I'm guessing you would say that, but for me, I would always look at horizons 3, 4, and 5, and think those through. Give myself some time to see whatever shows up on those horizons. But I guess you would do that more on an ad hoc basis.
Well, I would do that when the day-to-day is out of control, is in control. So I wouldn't bother with those kind of activities until you say, I got enough clear space right now to let my brain go free and think at those different levels. Again, the uniqueness of GTD is we deal with where people are, not where they should be. Because if you think where I should be, and your day-to-day is out of control, then good luck. You're just going to create guilt and frustration. So get your world under control as how you define what your world is that's out of control. And that could be the dishes that need to be cleaned. It could be the divorce you might want to have, you don't know what to do about. It could be the merger with your partner or a company that you can't decide about. It could be any of that. Those need to get somewhat under control, not finished, but again, appropriate engagement. That's the key to GTD. How do I appropriately engage with those things that have my attention? So again, our mission is turning perception of problems into perception of projects. So what's the thing that's got my attention? How do I get that under control? And then I think it then organically lifts people like helium in a balloon, where you sort of naturally lift up to higher levels of thinking about what you're doing and how you're doing it, but not as a forced process from the top down, but as an organic process that emerges from the inside out once you get the stuff done. Wow, what would you do if you had clear space? What would all of you do, by the way, if all of your day-to-day was under control and appropriately engaged and nothing on your mind? What would then be on your mind? And that could be, why are you on the planet? It could be, wow, what I like to do with my life and my life partner or my family 5 years from now, where we would like to be in terms of lifestyle and whatever. Could be any of that. But GTD doesn't designate what you need to think about. It says how you need to think about what's on your mind, so that gets clear, so that then you're clearer about what you need to think about.
Cool. We have one more question, or maybe a couple I see now. One more from Michael. For those of us who are just starting out with GTD, could you give us some examples of what it has given you to start looking at the highest horizon? I know that it must be a lot of years ago, you say.
No, it's daily. It's what I'm doing, in alignment with what I think I should be doing, whatever. This is not a, wow, I did that back there and now I don't need to do any of that again. No, I just define what the life process is that we need to do to stay sort of appropriately engaged as we're navigating through our life. And that's not going to end until I die, maybe even not then. But until then, I still had to think about, wait a minute, what am I doing? This thing's sitting in my in basket. I still got one of these. My wife, by the way, says, David, please see me about this. you don't get rid of this game in terms of dealing with the flow of life's work as it comes to you. The idea, and I'll go back to sort of the higher horizons. Why is that even in my end basket? At some point, I need to decide what I'm doing and whether I should even be thinking about that stuff or not. Sure, but you don't get rid of that. None of you are going to get rid of that. You don't get rid of those kinds of constant assessments and challenges to make decisions about what you're doing and what you're not doing. If you have a key to stopping that, let me know. I'd love to know it. I don't think so. So that's an ongoing game. So what GTD did was define the game. What do I need to decide about this? And if that's uncomfortable to me, that I keep having to deal with that kind of thing, what do I need to do about that? That's not their job, that's mine. So it always comes back to, what's my accountability? What's my agreement with myself about what I'm engaged with out here? And that's not going to stop, guys. It's going to change significantly as you grow older. Believe me, I'll be 75 in a couple of weeks. And my horizon has changed to some degree significantly, but to some degree, down in the shorter term, changes by the day. Okay, should I do that? Should I do that? Okay, which of those articles should I write? Which one of those emails should I spend a lot of time with to respond to them? I don't get rid of that. But I need to just be trusting that I'm appropriately engaged with the process. Then I'm in mind like water. I'm in flow. Doesn't mean it's fun. There's some things I don't have fun dealing with in terms of emails or whatever. It just means I'm in the flow of the process. So I'm engaging with that appropriately and I'm not creating backlog of uncaptured, unclarified, unprocessed stuff. I don't know. I went further than Lars, what you may have asked about, but
just building on Michael's question, and I'm wondering if you're thinking the same. What are some of the biggest changes that you have seen when people have become more clear on their higher horizons, perhaps on purpose or vision or whatever it might be? But if you can share any sort of examples on that.
Yeah. Bottom line, they decide that where they want to be is not where they want to be, and they make a significant change. Or they decide that where they are is actually where they ought to be, and they relax and engage with it appropriately. And it's both.
Yeah. So I think instead of hogging the microphone, I'll see if I can pass it on to the people asking the questions. Tillman, you've asked a question as well. I don't know if you have, if you're able to unmute and maybe pose your own question.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
1 second, I can even switch on my camera if it works. My computer is not okay, it seems to be working. Anyway, David, hi, pleasure to see you again. We talked once, you probably don't remember, at a webinar like this about peace, and I was inspired by your answers back then. However, now I would like to ask something slightly more down to earth. The topic of today is the yearly review. Although I am familiar with the GTD concept for, I don't know, 15 years or so, and you mentioned that you're using the brain. I've been using the personal brain software for 15 years for basically absolutely everything that I have at all in any digital form. So I put everything into my brain. So even though I've used that software a lot, I've started implementing GTD only about 2 years now. And a special shout out to Jukka, who is now also present, because I had his coaching, which really helped me to kickstart the GTD system. So I am still a beginner, and I'm struggling, and I'm struggling, and I'm struggling, and I'm struggling. And I didn't really realize until very lately why I'm struggling. And the reason is that I lack the habits. First, I was told that, yeah, the weekly review is the most important thing. But then I found out that actually the daily review is the most important thing. In other words, kind of having a daily habit of emptying the inbox. But that is just, I don't know, too much work. I don't know why, but it's not realistic for me to do a daily review. But then the weekly review is difficult to achieve as well. And now we are talking about an annual review. So I guess my question is, how do these different reviews differ from each other than the obvious time horizon? Are there any different steps? Are there any similarities? What are the main differences? Thank you.
Well, Timon, hold for a second. Everybody on screen, anybody not had any struggle with any of these reviews? Raise your hand. Timon, by the way, you're in great company.
Can I ask for the result? Because I had you, Maximus, so I didn't see any others.
No, nobody, I didn't see anybody raise their hand. You're in great company. I didn't raise my hand either, right? So I just identified the issue we all have, which is staying current, staying complete, you know, with our agreements with ourselves, etc. And that, anybody who could stay totally current all the time, first of all, is probably not playing a big enough game, because they're not throwing themselves into enough confusion and unclarity based upon the vision they have about where they want to go. So there's nothing about being unclear or not doing this. It's just these reviews are set up to get you back to current. Come on, how often do you change your oil in your car? How often do you take a shower? How often do you clean your dishes? Like, we all have standards about how clean do we stay. It's just that GTD recognize cleanliness at another level of game in terms of your cognitive, commitments and agreements and incompletions and the things that have your attention about that. So this was there were times in my life where I had to do weekly reviews twice a day. My life was moving so crazy, so fast, so quick. I had to sit down and go, wait a minute, I just got down in the weeds with this conversation. How do I capture that, put that in my in basket, and then step back and then move up to another level of game to say, wait a minute, what's my bigger game here? How do I spend the rest of my day? So you don't get rid of this. I didn't set something up that you're not having to do if you want to stay sane in the world. I just identified what these processes are. And the truth is, to your point, most people don't have these habits. Most people have the habit of dealing with these things when the pressure forces them to have to make some decision about something, and then it's made out of a trusted choice, and they're being driven by latest and latest. So if you want to change that game, you just need to build these reviews into whatever recursions you need. Sometimes you need them 3 times a day. If I got a calendar with 16 interviews or four podcasts I'm doing today, I better review that moment to moment. Matter of fact, I had 3, block to block for this one. I had to keep looking at that. How much time do I have to stay on this last one until I could unhook, so I could hook in with Lars, for you guys. So that was just an up level review to take a look at where am I in space and time about this. And you might need to do that daily. You might need to do that weekly. You might need to do that monthly. You might do that quarterly. You might need to do that. Actually, we all probably need to do that in some recursion in our lives. So all GT did was start to recognize what are these different horizons that we need to review or recalibrate ourselves against so that we feel comfortable about what we're doing. I didn't make this up, guys. I just recognized it and tried to get it as simple as I could to describe what you need to do if you want to get present. Sorry, more than you probably would ask about, but couldn't stop myself.
But if I may follow up, because I'm not sure if I understand. Are you saying that a review is a review, and we call it a weekly review just if you do it weekly, but if it's annual or daily, it doesn't really matter? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Hey, Dylan, what do you need to do to get this off your mind? What's on your mind? It's all about that, guys. What's on your mind? Why? Because you haven't either thought about it at some level, you haven't viewed something at some level of agreement with yourselves and other people you haven't engaged with yet. I don't know. I just tried to design a methodology that would give you a format to let you then get clear about that. But you have to decide, do you want to get clear? Tell me what's on your mind. Why?
I wish I'd know.
Yeah. And what would you need to, you say you wish you know, what's your next action to get clear about knowing?
I guess my biggest problem is that I have a backlog, as you can confirm, and that backlog is so huge, but just, what's the word?
So what do you need? What do you need? So what do you need to do about it? Come on, I'm going to pay €1 million right now, someone, to move on that, to get clear about all that backlog. What's your next action?
I guess the answer to that question would be to spend 100 hours, 100 days, just finally going through that.
No. The next action.
To start going through that stuff.
How would you do that? At your computer? With somebody else? What?
By myself on my computer.
Doing what?
Opening my million different inboxes and using the principles that you teach, which means take one item out at a time.
Cool. And are you free to do that, or do you need to schedule time to do that?
My working time schedule is flexible, so yes, I could do it, yes.
Okay. So you get the €1 million if you start. Go ahead.
I started last week for the millionth time. The problem is not the starting, the problem is the ending.
There is no ending. Anybody got an end to any of their stuff? Raise your hand.
But isn't ending getting rid of the backlog?
Well, sure, or getting it to at least as minimal as it can be. And yes, and you can do that.
But that would take, in my case, so much time.
Well, hey, it's just called Control-A, Control-X, delete, and then pray. Just dump it all. Start again.
Which is not something I want to do, because I know that important.
Why not?
Because I know that there's important stuff in there.
Well, then you better then go through those important things. Grow up. Just take. I'm sorry. I'm 75 this month, so don't take my stuff. But this is what you need to do. If you want to get what you want, you better then take each one of those things and then deal with them one at a time, and then engage with them appropriately, and then get rid of them. And how long it takes to get rid of that backlog down, I don't know. That could take 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months. I don't know. Believe me, I've spent a whole week with the CEO that took that long to identify all their stuff they had attention on and to deal with them. So, so it just takes as long as it takes. But you can't beat the process. But this is the process. You just have to decide whether you actually want to get there or not, or how important that might be. See, you're sorry, everybody. The biggest issue everybody has is your addiction to ambient anxiety. You're willing to tolerate that. I'm not. Anybody sitting in ambient anxiety right now? What the stuff you should be doing, ought to be doing, might, but I don't know. But if it is, right? And ambient anxiety, it's not overwhelm. If you were overwhelmed, your building caught on fire, that you'd be overwhelmed, but you'd handle it. But it's really that ambient, weird, strange feeling that, God, there's a lot of stuff I might, should, would, could, ought to do, but I don't know what it is, and I haven't got to engage with it appropriately. So Tillman, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't mean to call you out, but I wanted to sort of share with everybody, since you brought it up as a thing. That's the biggest issue everybody has, is your willingness to tolerate these weird, ambiguous things that are going on in your world. And that's why, again, end of year review. Let's bring it back, Lars, to top you if we can. Let's roll. Let's grab this back in. So that's a good reason to say, okay, what happened this year? What's cool? What we finished? What we did? Where do we want to go next year? In terms of that kind of thinking, and then all the rest of the stuff. If you've got backlog, guys, any of you, backlog, the degree. That's why when I'm not doing anything else, I'm handling this, because there's something coming toward me I can't see, and I want as clean a backlog, called no backlog if appropriate, so I can make a good intuitive decision instantly about what to do about that or not. See, none of you have time to think, guys. You need to have already thought. And if you have not appropriately thought appropriately, you're not going to know how to deal with the emails that have been piling up while you've been listening or talking to us. You're going to trust latest and loudest in terms of decision making. So you need to build in these review and reflection processes. Back to tell me your point. How often do I need to review and reflect on all of my stuff so I feel comfortable about whatever's coming toward me, that I can evaluate it against all the other options that may still be resonant in my universe? Sorry, guys, I probably talked too much. But
So there's no difference between an annual or monthly or weekly or daily review?
How about a second-to-second review? Where you're going in your life. It's just a thing to do. And to make that decision confident, which level do you need to go to then have reviewed that so you trust that? It's all about, hey, and frankly, it's all about trusting your intuition, your gut, your heart, your spirit, your liver, whatever you trust to make an intuitive decision about whether hanging out with me and Lars tonight was what you needed to do, as opposed to, by the way, how many, we have, what, 30, 50 people, we've got, what, 60 people on this right now. 60 times 80 projects, that'd be 4,800 projects not getting done right now, by the way, because you're doing this instead of those things. Okay, well, are you feeling cool about that? Or wow, isn't that cool? And then that's a great menu. And then I'll go to my restaurant as soon as I get off these guys and decide what to do next, or just go to sleep or play with the kids or take the dog out for poop or whatever you do.
David, you've said if you're not doing a weekly review, you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's one of your quotes. And that sort of countered, you said a few minutes ago, you said, how about a review every second? So
well, it's true. And it was something I realized about 4 or 5 years ago, that if you're not doing a weekly review, some part of you is always trying to figure out at some level, not very consciously, or you just fry up, but it's still there. Oh my God, what should I be doing? What am I missing? What's the priority? Whatever. And everybody's trying to do that. And somebody, actually in an interview I did a couple of weeks ago, came up with the phrase. So it's like the weekly review is cognitive shower. Right? You sit back and you do, wow, look at all that. Look what I haven't done. Look what I haven't done. Look what I have done. Look what's coming up. Oh my God, look at that. Look what I did these 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, that reminds me, whatever. And you just go through this cognitive shower that you won't do unless you take time to take that cognitive shower. And I don't know what that looks like for anybody. And I don't know how often that needs to be for anybody. We just found out over all these years and thousands of hours with people that about every 7 days, it's a real good idea to do some version of that process. But it's not in stone. I can go sometimes 2 or 3 weeks without doing a weekly review. And there were times where I had to do them 2 times a day. It's all about what's the purpose of that. The purpose of that is to get yourself clear.
All right, I think the next one that at least I saw flying by in the chat, a lot of good comments there as well. What were you, Alex? You had a question on, I think, both agile software development and similarities with GTD. I don't know if you are on a internet connection that is good enough to unmute and ask your question.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, I have a question about the similarities about the GTD methodology and the agile practices. Because what I noticed, and there are a lot of similar tools used in both. Whereas, as I wrote there, like agile is associated with some stress and speed and whatever, like burnout, in my head at least. And it doesn't mention in the philosophy, it doesn't mention any stress, anything. It's only positive things are mentioned in agile. They're hidden, and stress is hidden. Whereas in GTD, what David Allen stated directly in both books, in the GTD book and in Making It Work, that it can happen that the person is will jump off the wagon, right? Will be some overwhelming stuff, but there is a easy way to get back on. So it's honestly stated. Whereas in agile, it's not, it's hidden. I just wonder if, David, if you can reflect on that. Have you read those agile manifestos and whatever, like their philosophy is about? And can you reflect on the differences and similarities of GTD and agile? Am I right or not?
Well, Alex, sorry, I don't quite really understand your question in its detail. I can just tell you that some of my best champions, the Post-Agile Institute in California, Luca, our licensee in Italy, who certifies Agile and Scrum and Kanban, all those trainers with their model, are huge GTD champions. So, you know, my guy in California said, look, David, GTD is Agile for the brain. See, a lot of Agile and Scrum and all those other things create highly effective and efficient processes for workflow externally. How do you manage this goes to here, this goes to here, this goes, or how do we create, or how do we manage all that stuff? I got it. And by the way, I'm not an expert or certified in any of that. Just from the best I understand that, it's about the external workflow. But most of the people who are very sophisticated and certified and senior in those levels say GTD adds the extra component you need to. See, GTD is Agile for the brain. How do you create a simple thought process or a sophisticated thought process that doesn't waste energy in the brain? Why do you think about something twice? Right? So in an external Agile thing, you'd say, why do we have to do something twice when we don't need to do it only once? Well, why do you guys have to think about something twice? Right? So Agile didn't approach that. And by the way, once you walk out of those Agile or Scrum or Kanban meetings, is everybody engaged with that, appropriately engaged with what they need to do about that, in terms of their decisions about what they need to do about all that stuff? So no argument with any of that. All that stuff, great stuff, but they don't address GTD.
If I may offer my perspective, seeing I work in both fields, I learned getting things done before I came across Agile, and when I did, I instantly recognized the similarities, and I think they kind of confirm each other, because what's true in GTD is also the same truth that underlies a lot of the thinking around agile and lean and all those thoughts. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, but it's the same sort of philosophy underneath. And then they serve in different arenas, so to speak. And there are certain things that in the agile development methodologies that has to do with software development. But that's also transferable to other areas. But the feedback, the getting, the planning, doing, reviewing cycle is similar. And Agile also talks a lot about having a sustainable pace, which I kind of take as that lower stress element part, and that you also need peace of mind to be able to work in software development and similar things, where you really need your cognitive abilities and focus on what you're doing, or else you're not going to get the work done. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I can add, I can add to that as well. Working in Leroy, we the head of our lean program. It's called Leroy Way, as you can see here on the wall behind me. And lean or agile, or those methods, like they're like combining perfectly with GTD, because GTD is for the person, right? But lean, like I implement lean for a lot of factories and a lot of businesses within our corporations. And let me tell you, those guys, they only need GTD more when we start those projects, because there is so much coming up. And if people, so we were starting to in Leroy now to coach people within GTD as we do the lean implementation. As we see it, it's going like this. So, and it works beautifully.
Cool. Thanks, Jonas and Christina as well. The next question I saw in the chat was from Christian. I don't know if you already covered this in your initial thoughts, David. How important is setting goals in your yearly review?
I'd forget them. You know, you need to clean up, guys. Let your goals emerge organically once you've cleaned up your backlog, once you're clear, once you're in present state. Then allow yourself, then trust your intuitive judgments about where you want to go. Nothing wrong with that, but trying to overlay goals on top of that, some of you need to clean your toilets before you set goals. If your day-to-day is out of control, come on, don't kid yourself. Trying to set some sort of future vision and commit to that, you're just creating guilt and frustration. So clean up, get your life clear. And then, hey, come on, have a cool exercise. Or where would we then like to go now that we're clear? But you need to get clear first.
Very short comment to that. We coaches, we have, and also trainers, we have regular meetings, both in the Nordics and all over across the world. And the meeting in November for the coaches, David, you talked about that GTD is about uncovering. And you can like search for whatever is out of your control in your environment and correct it and clean it up. And that will release cognitive space and cognitive room, so it will be easy for you to focus on your goals. But just to add to that, what David just said.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Uncovering was one of my best things I've thought about in the last couple of years. It really is about uncovering. It's not about adding. It's not about working harder. It's not about sweating. It's about unlocking, uncovering what's there. But you can't do that by some, sort of abstract process. You need to do that by acknowledging what's there and what's covering. So, yeah, Carl, you you just gave a representative example of that palpable process that this is. It's more subtle than most people realize.
The next question I spotted was from, I'm suspecting this is a Finnish name, at least I will probably not pronounce it correctly if I try, but Radio Tajus. You had a question about tools, apps?
Yes, hello. Sorry, I don't have a video, but I don't want to reboot Zoom, so interesting topics. Anyways, I read your book 2004 maybe, and since then I have been using Things software, but what applications or platforms are you using with GTD?
Anything. There are thousands.
But for example.
Pick anyone. Anything that manages lists that you use frequently. Pick anything, and you're still using it 2 months from now, it works. If you're not, throw it away.
Yeah. But I'm interested in what are you using in your life? What applications or?
I just use, come on, we have an old Lotus Notes thing. I use a list manager that keeps my list. We're moving to Office 365, and I'll see how that works in terms of how that manages there. I don't know what to do with that yet, but it's just list managers. Nothing.
Yeah.
No big deal.
And also, I'm very convinced with Trello, but anyways, yeah.
Whatever. Hey, if you know where to go, when you have an errands list, do you have a talk to your life partner list? Do you have a surf the web list?
Yeah, but there are also many tools which are not like supporting, but maybe disturbing GTD philosophy, and that's why it matters.
Yeah, they're all
just,
they just all added bells and whistles to sell themselves. Fine, pick one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
The next question that I saw was from Johanna. What kind of impact? All right, sorry, Johanna, I'll let you open your mic as well.
Okay. I was just thinking, since this is a pretty weird year for all of us, so what kind of impact, if it has had any, has COVID-19 had on using GTD? Have you created an after COVID context list or something like that?
Yeah, a lot of people have. I've talked to. They say, okay, once this slows down, here's the things I can do, and I'm not going to bother with them until that happens. Good idea. So if that is relevant to you, cool. Otherwise, a lot of people are going, wow, I still have all this other stuff I need to do. I just need to move it to a online list or some other kind of list based upon what I need to do, given the change of context that I'm in. That's all. Nothing's changed in terms of the methodology or the application of it.
All right. Any other questions? I think I caught most of them from the chat, but perhaps I missed someone. Then feel free to unmute. Is there a GTD for kids? Valerie's asking.
Sure. If you haven't got the book yet, it's Getting Things Done for Teens. 12 to 22. And a lot of adults love that book. They say, oh, it's got cartoons, it's got characters, and it makes the barrier to entry we made a little easier, but it's the same thing, same methodology. Look, come on, guys. If your 9-year-old comes back with a pack at the end of the week with a note from their teacher that the parent should have signed, they need to empty that and decide the next action, who gets it. CEO, comes back from a board meeting, needs to empty their briefcase. Duh. Sorry. Same thing. Same thing for any of these guys.
Yeah, I can highly recommend reading that. Actually gave me some nice perspective. So I can certainly recommend that as well. And just add that Torbjörn is saying that my 4-year-old daughter gets the concept of an inbox. Daddy is proud.
Yay.
I think GTD works as long as you have a human brain, and I think kids have kids' brains. So when we present GTD to our kids, we need to present it in the world of our kids. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and instead of like cleaning her room, we get in there and we just gather some things and put it in the middle of the room, and then we take one thing and say, okay, where does this live? Or you wanted to give this away? Okay, give away. Okay, give away. Where does this live? This lives there. Okay, this next thing. And that's it. Like then we give, then instead of saying, we say like, where's the home of this doll? Where does this doll go to rest? You know, so it's like just kids' language, and she loves it. Then she can work for a long time on this. Where's the home of this? Where's the home of this? And then she continues on her own as well, and saying that the dog has to go back on her own. And yeah, so.
Carl, thank you. That would be an addition to my vision that everybody perceives GTD as the game that's fun to play. Thank you.
I have one question.
Sure, go ahead, Antti.
Yeah, so it's not really like related to the yearly review, but you wrote in the book that in teams, GTD actually creates the trust between people. And we're seeing it in our company between the people who are using GTD. We can basically trust that once I input something into their system, it will get done, but I can't decide when it will get done. So what is your perspective of using GTD in a sort of organization or with a team? Is this still like an individual sport, or is there some like levels of this which are like team oriented? Or what's your view on the larger like team usage of GTD?
We're actually working on that right now. Ed Lamont, from England, and I are looking at a new book about GTD and organizational culture.
Okay.
And all of that stuff. So lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Once people get this, how many things are improved in terms of clarity, in terms of et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into that further, but you're right. It's an area that probably has not been leveraged publicly more than as much as we could have, and that's what we're looking at right now. To make that more available to people. Say, hey guys, you want to change your culture? You can't teach, by the way, an organization to read.
And one.
But what if you have an organization that can't read?
That is true. And one follow-up comment to that is that what we've noticed is that the trusted system is chosen by everyone, and everybody has a different, like what works for them. And that has been quite difficult because you don't want to force one system that everybody would need to.
No, but you want to force results.
Yeah.
Hi, excuse me. I got 2 key projects I'd like to hand off to you, I think, but give me your project list so I don't overwhelm you. If you don't have it, screw you. Right. So this is nothing about GTD. It's about the reality of how you manage agreements, how you manage relationships, how you manage all that stuff. See, GTD, don't go out and preach GTD, go preach best organizational practices.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. The next one was Anastina, I think.
Hello, David.
Hi.
Nice to talk to you again. I've listened to you a few times, and you say that you discover a new layer of the GTD, and you discover new things about GTD even now. What is your latest discovery?
Good question. I think it's about ambient anxiety versus overwhelm. And that's the biggest issue. People's comfort with ambient anxieties, that they're willing to tolerate all this stuff that you guys complain about in terms of relationships and communications, meetings, emails, etc. You're willing to hang out with, why do I have my attention? What do I, how do I get clear about that? It's not overwhelmed. You guys are not overwhelmed. You're not. Maybe you were at some point, but you got through the overwhelm fast for however you did that. But it's the ambient anxiety that hangs and lingers, about all this stuff. And that's the biggest issue. And so that's probably my biggest awareness over the last year or two about this.
So you uncovered that. So you uncovered that as a.
Yeah, no, I just recognized that. I didn't. I recognized that was the issue. A lot of people get into GTD at some level, but then they level off at some point and don't really get it. All of you. I'm sorry. I'm going to challenge all of you. How absolutely empty is your heads about everything in your life right now? Right? And it's just the fact that you're willing to tolerate something that'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, or, oh, what do I do about that? Come on, guys, I do this too. I have to engage with myself with all these practices. So that's the biggest aha I've had, is the subtlety of how subtle it is to change the habitual processes that we need to upgrade to make sure you stay really, really clear.
Yeah, it's hard. I can recognize that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question I saw was from Martin Haagen.
Yes, I was a little bit curious about your reading and reading habits. Do you have a book that you think everyone should read that is not one of your own, of course?
Yes, called The Antidote by Oliver Burkeman.
Yep. And what book gave you the most that you read the last year?
Successful Aging by Dan Levitin. Daniel Levitin, I think it is. Yes. Successful Aging.
Cool.
Because I'm 75, guys. But if any of you are 55 or over, or are going to be, or manage people who are, whatever, fabulous book about the sort of what denigrates by age, but what could be enhanced by age, but not automatically. That you have to do stuff to do that. Fabulous book. So Daniel Levitin's Successful Aging, and Oliver Burkeman's, those are kind of my favorites right now. I have 2 or 3 behind me, but those were critical in terms of ahas for me.
Good. Thanks for the tips.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Roa, maybe you were building on a question from earlier. At least I noticed you said how to avoid this. So I probably need you to unmute to elaborate on that one.
Further down, I add a few more sentences. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a bit low. Your volume is a bit low. If you could.
I'm afraid I can't do much about it. If you look further down, 2 or 3 messages, I added a few more sentences.
Okay, so just below I see on lists, all items seems more equal than they really are, and we tend to count and focus more on list length than on content.
Yeah, compare 2 lists, like remember some kind.
By the way, I can hear you. What's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Now.
Tell me your question.
Yeah, how to avoid the common problem of on a list like a bullet. They tend to become more equal than they often are. And we tend to count the length of the list and focus more on reducing the length of the list than dealing with the most important content on the list.
Yeah, simple answer. Grow up, get older. Sorry, it's kind of late night here in Amsterdam, so just letting you know, that's the answer. Come on, guys. I make choices about what to do based upon how much time I have, whether I feel like doing that or not, whatever. It's just an option on a menu. You don't order everything on the menu. You pick what you want to do, given the time you have, given the energy you have, given where you are. Just make sure you're not feeling bad about what you're not picking off the menu. That's all.
So I am not seeing any further questions added. We are approaching the end of the scheduled time as well. Any last questions that we want to get in before we wrap up this meetup? Jonas liked the menu analogy, I see. And I do too. It doesn't seem to be the case. Jens, anything from your end to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think just a gratitude comments just before Christmas that this has been a Christmas gift for us, attending this meetup. So thank you very much, David. And I think the biggest impact on GTD, I see it when I speak to, not to David, but to other people, when I hear their stories and the impact they have got from GTD. So been to the GTD summits and meeting hundreds of people where they have such amazing stories, everybody. That's just shown how fantastic this methodology is. So thank you very much. I think we have no further messages. Looks like we have just you, Lars, to take us out the podcast way, as you used to do with Morten.
Yes, let's do that. So what Jens is hinting at is that we always wrap up the GTD Nordic podcast with me reminding you to head on over to gtdnordic.com, where you'll find links to the country websites for each of the Nordic countries. If you happen to be watching this perhaps on YouTube and you're outside of the Nordics, then go to gettingthingsdone.com to find your local GTD partner. And from each of the country websites, you can get in touch with certified trainers, GTD trainers and coaches, learn more about the different offerings, courses, speeches, and coaching. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us.
Lars, last couple of words.
Yes.
Thank you, guys, for all of you playing. Oh, my God. You know, I never knew this would become such a global event to improve conditions for anybody who engage with any version of this work. So anything you all are doing to spread it, share it, or represent it, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, great. And yeah, same for me. Thanks so much to you all. Thanks you, David, for taking the time to hang out with us. Thanks to all the trainers for joining and pitching in from all across the Nordic countries. Thanks to Jens for organizing. Thanks to everyone for joining. It really is amazing and inspiring to see how big the GTD community is growing across the Nordics. So thank you so much for being a part of it. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you again next time. Have a great evening.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.